So apparently, certain members of Congress have allegedly been using information they received in closed door committee meetings to buy and sell stock solely for the purpose of getting rich. Now, though they receive certain, what I would at times consider unfair protections from their actions as government officials, should they continue to be allowed to have personal advantages that the typical American is denied? Well, let's talk about that.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Paul. Let me just say that we have an opportunity here today to do something that the public has wanted us to do for decades, and that is to ban members of Congress from profiting on information that, frankly, only members of Congress have in the buying and selling of stock. 86% of Americans say that members of Congress should not be able to buy and sell shares of stock, individual stock, while they are members of this body, and they are absolutely correct. And the reason is, you can see it, there was just another ethics referral in the House last week. We've seen the former Speaker of the House make millions of dollars in profits. We've seen members of both parties, I'm sad to say, be investigated for their stock trades. And the reason for all of this is that, quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that the normal person just is not. Now, is that insider trading? It is not under the laws. Sometimes people say, well, we already have insider trading laws. We don't need a stock ban. Well, the information that members of Congress are privy to is technically not covered by the insider trading laws, but nobody really believes that the information that we get isn't valuable. It is quite valuable, which is why back during COVID, you saw members of Congress of both parties engage in a flurry of stock trading right after they were getting COVID briefings. Were members of the public getting those briefings? They were not. Were members of the public privy to the kind of information that was being given to members of Congress? No, they were not.
Okay, this is Senator Josh Hawley, the Republican senator from Missouri. Now, from the many committee hearings I've watched, in my opinion, he has always demonstrated himself to be consistent and straightforward in his position as a senator to stand for that which is true above that which is clearly activism and bias. He seems to consistently strive to support legislation as well as the confirmation of any appointed candidates for government offices based solely upon merit and integrity. Now, as you could see in this video, he was exposing that there were members of Congress who were seemingly using insider information they received to enrich themselves. Conduct he rightly believed was unethical because, as he stated, according to the letter of the law, what they were doing was not considered illegal. Even though, should any typical American do this, they would be arrested for what is considered insider trading. I have to admit that it is refreshing to see a politician step up to reveal how certain government officials who were elected to serve the people are abusing their positions to enrich themselves. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that corruption is deeply ingrained within the halls of our government. From the way we see how activist judges neglect the law to enact rulings that clearly only support their own political bias, all the way up to the White House, where presidents will blatantly neglect common sense and rational policies just to push their own social activist agendas. Now, in this case, the longtime issue of House representatives and senators getting rich from stock trades, probably made from privileged information they received through closed-door briefings, are currently in the process of being exposed. In particular, the unbelievable increase of personal wealth from representatives like Nancy Pelosi, among others, which is why some House representatives believe a stock ban must take place.
The president had his position on the stock trading ban bill for Congress. He obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he, of course, supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot enrich themselves. And the reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% In 1 year, in 2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year, and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So even if the president stands with the American people on this, he doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill.
So let's be honest about these stats, because that is quite an amazing, if not unheard of, outcome in investment returns if there isn't any type of closed-door information being applied. Such information which would not be made available to the public. After all, let's think about the fact that in 1 year, the Pelosi stock portfolio increased a whopping 70%. Now, how does that even happen? And look, if in that 1 year her portfolio more than doubled the increase of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway organization, then how does that not strongly suggest that her receiving insider knowledge led to impropriety in her husband's stock trading practices? When I looked up Nancy Pelosi's net worth when she first got elected into Congress, she basically was worth about $3 million. Now, after serving so many years in Congress with the salary of approximately $174,000 a year, and I believe about $250,000 a year as Speaker of the House, her net worth went from $3 million to what Carolyn Levitt claims is now around $413 million. And because of that, she apparently is by far the wealthiest person in Congress. I would think that being married to a man who deals in the stock market regularly has something to do with that, as her husband Paul owns a San Francisco-based real estate and venture capital investment and consulting firm called Financial Leasing Services, Inc. Yet even still, how could her net worth rise so much through her husband's stock trades without her husband having had some type of advantage in the market? Yet despite the probability that she had communicated privileged committee information to him, whenever she is questioned on the ethics of those in Congress using insider information, she continually claims that she is on the right side of the ethics because she doesn't know anything about the stocks. It is her husband who does that, and she isn't involved. Well, if indeed that is the case, then her husband is smarter than every other hedge fund manager in the world, because according to Caroline Levitt, in 2024, he outshined every hedge fund organization in the nation. Let's take a look at a New York Post article dated July 31st of this year with a headline that reads, "Nancy Pelosi blows up at Jake Tapper over insider trading allegations." Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi blew up at CNN's Jake Tapper Live on air Wednesday when the broadcaster confronted her about her husband's stock trades and allegations of insider trading. Pelosi, Democrat California, 85, grew testy when presented with the clip of President Trump alleging she grew her fortune by having inside information during an interview on The Lead with Jake Tapper. "Why do you have to read that?" Pelosi scoffed as she gesticulated angrily. "We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come and talk," she sniped. Tapper noted that he merely wanted to give you a chance to respond to the president's accusations. "That's ridiculous," the former House Democratic leader shot back. "In fact, I very much support the efforts to stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anyone is doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this." Now, as usual, those politicians who are rightly questioned about their ethical or even criminal activities always, quote unquote, don't want to talk about that, such as she told Jake Tapper. And of course, they want to reassure the public that they don't need to worry about anything because it's all good. Nothing possibly unethical or criminal is happening here. And of course, she now supports stopping members of Congress from trading stocks with inside information because why not? She has already increased her fortune by around $410 million. The passing of a new bill prohibiting representatives from trading stocks today just won't affect her. Now, Although Nancy Pelosi is the focal point for this legislation to stop members of Congress from being able to enrich themselves through stock trades, mainly because of the exorbitant amount she has increased her own fortune, there are members from both sides of the political aisle who seem to do the same. According to an article dated January 13th of this year from The Independent with the headline that reads, "Dozens of Congress members outperformed the stock market in 2024. Here's who gained the most and why." More than 20 members of Congress have questionable gains in the stock market. They write, "The stock market had a record-breaking run last year, but members of Congress still managed to outperform it with their portfolios making staggering gains in industries where they yield legislative power and influence, such as tech and energy. More than 20 members made almost double the S&P 500 average gain of 24.9% last year. The top 5 performers, Representative David Reuser, Republican, North Carolina; Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Democrat, Florida; Ron Wyden, Democrat, Oregon; Roger Williams, Republican, Texas; Morgan McCarthy, Democrat, Kentucky, increased the value of their portfolio value by more than 100%, according to a new report. In reference to one of the measures to stop House representatives from trading stocks that was spearheaded by Democrat AOC and Republican Matt Gaetz, the article goes on to say this. When asked to comment on the news that many members of Congress had outperformed the market again, Ocasio-Cortez said, "I don't think that members of Congress should be trading and holding individual stock. We are privy to very sensitive information, not just in terms of classified information, but also in terms of the social dynamics and the political dynamics in the House. We are privy to knowing when legislation is more likely to pass, that which is least likely to pass, amendments that might happen, and we're often the first to get notice of developments," she said. So clearly, it is likely that certain government officials have been able to use their office to enrich themselves at the cost of the people they're supposed to serve because they receive information on upcoming legislation concerning big business. This shouldn't be a newsflash to any of us because most of us already know that much of our government is corrupt. Currently, as we saw in the opening video, Senator Josh Hawley is advocating for legislation to curtail the unethical use of insider information as a means for corrupt politicians to enrich themselves. As a Senate committee is currently dealing with such a bill, let's hope that the correct legislation will pass soon. Legislation that will protect the public from those who would unethically use their office for their own benefit before the benefit of the people they're supposed to serve. Because as long as the system provides a means for a politician to use his or her position to enrich themselves, there will always exist the avenue for them to become corrupt. And sadly, many will then take that path. So, those are my thoughts. Always feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this type of content, please take a second to hit that like button, as that is very helpful to me. And of course, don't forget that notification bell, as that will ensure that you will never miss a new video. Lastly, for those of you who have already subscribed, thank you so very much for your kind support. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be a great help for me to grow the channel if you would consider doing so. It is free and only takes a second. Well, that's it for today. And as usual, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and God bless you. Until next time.